Welcome to episode 3. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Phillips, and today we are in the metro Atlanta area at the DeKalb County Library, speaking to a certified pediatric nurse practitioner, Lisa Vialva.
Hello? Hello? All the girls afraid to fail, are you there? Welcome to the podcast where we talk to women over 40 to learn all there is to know about growing up and succeeding. From activists and entrepreneurs to leaders of national organizations, we're getting every ounce of the tea. Let's go.
Lisa is going to walk us through her incredible journey, from cleaning houses and babysitting children in New Jersey to becoming a certified pediatric nurse practitioner. She teaches us the importance of patience. Let's get into it. To kick us off, let's start off with a pulse check. So if you could describe your mindset on life right now in 3 words, what would you say?
3 words: determination, resilience, and hope.
Nice. And this podcast looks at how failure can lead to positive life changes and really just how 20-year-olds need to develop their relationship with failure early. So what is your relationship with failure? Like, what does that look like?
So I'm going to put a little spin on failure. I don't like to use that word failure. I like to use words like setback, disappointment. So we all get setbacks in life depending on what our road is or disappointments. So I would change that word a little bit for me personally and use the word setback or disappointment. I think it gives a little bit more bandwidth to wiggle with.
And can you talk about like a setback or a disappointment that you've experienced that's really like impacted your life?
So I want to say that it started, so I'm going to preface to say my parents are from the Caribbean, and they always wanted a better life for us. Back in the days, it was about the American dream. And so they gave us a pathway to come up here. And I think the biggest setback I had was the assimilation in this country. And I feel that I'm still assimilating. And so that was, I think, for me, the biggest setback. I didn't anticipate such a long wait. And so I had to be comfortable sitting within my space for a little bit.
And can you describe this waiting period a little bit? Like, what did that long wait look like?
That long wait was filled with fear. It was filled with anxiety. It was filled with sometimes, a lot of the times, hope. When I saw the light at the end of the tunnel, and that was always my driving force. That was my determination. And so I went through many emotions through my journey, and here I am.
Here you are. And what were you waiting for? What was this light at the end of the tunnel that kept guiding you?
The little message in the back of my head with my parents, especially my mom, telling me never to give up on my dream, regardless of what path you take in life. Never give up on your dream. And so that has always been my momentum that I use to go forward, regardless of circumstance or setback. Not failure, setback.
Yes. And so was your dream always to work in the medical field, or what specific dream are you speaking of now?
I've always loved medicine. Don't know why. I guess because I loved science. So I've always loved medicine, loved biology, loved chemistry. And so I knew at some point in time in my life that I would get into medicine, or at some point in time figure out a pathway to go into it.
And so, like, you are from the United Kingdom, and then you moved to Trinidad before coming to the United States. So can you walk me through that journey a little bit, like what that looked like?
And so this is probably the first time I'm sharing the entire story in a snippet with someone. So my parents are, as I said, originally from the Caribbean. My dad had a working opportunity. And so he moved to the United Kingdom. And so with my mom and my dad, they had three of us. And they worked hard. That's all I saw. All I saw was what they portrayed to me through my lens, is working hard. One worked day, one worked night. They traded off shifts, and that's how it went. And so their dream was always to go back home, which their home is Trinidad and Tobago. And so we left England in the 1980s, roughly. And we set up home in Trinidad and Tobago for a long time. I finished all my formative years in the Caribbean, and then we left. Again, my dad had this vision for us. Hey, I want to get a piece of this American dream that was portrayed way back when, of just growing and really, really empowering what we can do. And so left the islands in the mid 90s, early 90s, after I sat what we call our O levels and A levels. And then we moved up to New Jersey, New York. And I think that was a big setback. That's where the setback somewhat happened, because things with the climate that we're living in now when it comes to immigration, I was undocumented for a while, a very long time. And so I cleaned houses. I was a babysitter. I'm very proud to say what I came from, because it made me into the person I am today. And then I worked my way up, and here I am.
And so I have to imagine there's a lot of fear that comes with being, in a new space, number one, and then also just trying to navigate you, like reaching for all of your dreams. So can you talk about, like, and women I think women all in whatever circumstance you're in, you can kind of relate to that fear a little bit, just of like not reaching that point that you always have in your head. So like, how did you navigate that? Like when you're on the job cleaning houses and you're sitting in that house and you're like, oh, but one day I want to get there. Like, what do you do in that in-between time, if that makes sense?
You be patient. It's tough, and we are from a very different generation. And my parents taught me about patience, about waiting, and there is a season for everything. And so that's what I had to do. And my parents always said, "You will have your time. Just be patient. This is a step that I had to take. It's a journey I had to take." And you'll get little dips and divots in the way, but it was a journey that I had to take, and it built me, it molded me, and I never forgot where I came from, and so I taught myself patience.
That's so real and so important. I think, like you said, we're from two different generations, which is the whole point of this podcast, is to really create that like cross-generational conversation.
Right.
Because to us, when we look around at like people in our generation and we're on Instagram and social media, like it looks so microwavable. Like one day you're here and then the next day you're like making $1 million, but like that's just not the reality of life and the world we live in.
Right.
So, I think it's so important that we hear like, okay, patience, and like patience can be a long time, because what was the distance between how many years were you cleaning houses and babysitting and doing all of that to the moment? I think, if I remember correctly, it was like 13 years before you went to get your master's in nursing, or?
So, I cleaned houses. I was a babysitter, I want to say, for over 10 years. At which time I got my medical assisting degree. Again, I had to figure out what I had to do was map out a plan. I had a plan. And I'm like, okay, Lisa, I don't have the money to go to a 4-year school. My parents told me they do not have the money to pay for us to go to school. You got to figure it out. Okay. Scholarships worked, paid my way. I took one class at a time, and I ended up with a 2-year degree as a medical assistant. And that's where it kind of all started from.
And so what age were you when you put this plan together?
I came to this country in my 2021. I want to say right around 25.
Mm-hmm. Yep, so right in that mid 20s.
Yep.
And so you put the plan together to get your 2-year degree first, right?
I did.
Okay.
I knew I knew what I wanted to do. I knew I needed to do medicine. I wanted to do medicine. And I'm like, okay, Lisa, how do I get there? And I didn't have the means to do it the traditional way. The traditional way for your generation is to go to a 4 year college, get your bachelor's, and then go to grad school. I didn't have that. I didn't have that to do it. So I'm like, okay, I need to pivot. And so that's what I did. I did a little pivot. I'm like, you know what? Let me go as a medical assistant, get an associate's degree, being a medical assistant, getting certified. I worked for a wonderful company in New Jersey. I never lost sight of my goal, though. I never lost sight of my goal. And along the way, I was able to get people in my circle and acquire knowledge that gave me momentum and steam needed to reach where I am right now.
Exactly. And so, how did you learn to believe that, like, at some point you were going to reach your goal? Like, you learned to not believe in failure.
I had no plan B. There was no plan B. No plan B. My parents were like, they didn't sugarcoat anything. We have no money to send you to college. You want to go to college. This is why we brought you up here. You're going to college. Figure it out. That's what I did. Figured it out. All the siblings figured it out. Mm-hmm. And this is coming from parents who just have an elementary school education. Okay, so we figured it out.
And how does it feel now to, like, be in a place you've dreamed of being for so
long? Surreal. Humbling at the same time, because there were so many times where I felt that I wouldn't reach there, or I even didn't deserve it. And so I've never lost sight of my path along the way, and I never forget who's behind me. And oftentimes we do forget who's behind us. So my goal is always to bring up that next generation, to say, hey, it's okay if you stumble. It's okay if you fall. Just don't stumble in the same spot at the same time again. Okay? Dust yourself off, keep going, but I will give you a helping hand to get there.
And you said the word humbling. Mm-hmm. And so can you talk about, like, what that means to be, like, humbled and, like, when you're kind of at the top? Like,
it's humbling because of the work that I do. I see myself in many of these patients. I know what it's like to be undocumented. I know what it's like to have no insurance. I know what it's like to require resources needed to get medication because you need it, whether it's for women's health or something like that. And so I'm always humbled when I come across a patient. I'm never afraid to do anything with a patient. If a patient wants to hug me, doesn't matter how they're looking, how they, appear to me. If I can give them a sense of hope, knowing this is temporary, I've done the best thing that I can do for that moment. And so that's what makes me humble, and it keeps me grounded, because it's easy to lose sight of, yes, I make decent money, and to just forget about it. It's in me. I wear it on my sleeve every day.
And you're also in a career field where you're touching people all the time. Mm-hmm. So it kind of keeps you in that space of always giving back mm-hmm. to others. That's really beautiful. And so, I want to talk about this choice to pursue medicine. Mm-hmm. Like, why medicine? Like, you love science, uh-huh. But was there anything else that kind of drew you to this path?
There was actually one major thing, and I always knew I wanted to go into science, well, something scientific. And my sister got into a really bad car accident. My son is what, 27, about 27 years ago. She ended up with a spinal cord injury. So she fractured two vertebrae in her neck, and she's partially paralyzed. And this was in New Jersey, and she stayed at a center for almost a year. We visited her every single day for over a year, every single day. She needed her nails done. We did it. She needed this done. She needed a lot of surgeries. Um, but I saw what giving back and just caring can do. And that was really my trigger moment where I said, I got it. This is what I want to do.
And so it was definitely kind of emphasized in that moment when you were caring for your sister.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess my question is like, when you were in your 20s, is this what you expected what your life to look like?
Not at all. I didn't even picture moving countries, much less continents. But time is moving so fast that you don't even have time to really grasp, hey, what was I thinking back then? Because time is waiting for no one. And so, no, not really.
But you're happy where you are.
I am.
And so one of my previous guests said that there's truly no sense of control when it comes to life. It's like you're kind of like led by purpose, and like if you believe in a higher being and things like that. Mm-hmm. So like, what do you think about this like sense of control that you have over your life?
Good question. So I actually partially agree with that statement, in the sense that the only thing we have control of is right now, this very second, sitting in this chair, me sitting across from you. I don't have any control in the past. That's memories. I don't have control of the future because that's your imagination. So you have your memories and you have your imagination. All we can focus on is the now, because that's all we have control of. We don't have control of what happened in the past, and we have no control of future.
So when you're in the now,
mm-hmm.
like so like you wake up every morning and you go throughout your day, mm-hmm. but like you have this imagination of the future, mm-hmm. and you're trying to get there. So like, what are your guiding principles when you wake up in the morning? So like, for me, I would say hard work, like making sure I'm caring and kind to others. But like, what would you say are your guiding principles?
Very simple. I treat each and every person as whichever higher power people believe in. You should treat everybody the same way, and just be kind, because at the end of the day, you don't know what that person or anyone that you come into contact with, you don't know what they've been through, what they're going through. Mm-hmm. And so my goal is to try to be the best version of myself to that person for now. And if I can pour into that person, whether it's the child or whether it's the parent, I would have done my day justice.
And has that shifted over time, or have your guiding values kind of stayed the same?
Stayed the same. Yeah. It's just become a little bit more exacerbated, mm-hmm. But it's kind of always been that way. And I see it in my parents. So it's something that I've always had in my life. And right now I just feel like I can just allow it to be. And however I pour into somebody or somebody gets in contact with me, so be it.
And there's one other question that kind of I've been asking most of my guests. Mm-hmm. It's like, do you get tired of working at any point? Or like, is there a life where you retire? Or like, what is your mindset on that?
So, there's a saying, if you love your job, you never work a day in your life, right? Mm-hmm. And I actually love what I do. I just came from doing some work, and I just love what I do. I don't get tired. I get brain tired, but physically tired, really not. My goal right now is to not retire. If I can do something alternatively to give back, whether it's in this country or give back to another country, I just want it to just continue.
Yeah, that makes sense because, you know, when you love something, like it's not going to be something that like stresses you out every time you do it. And of course, you have moments where you're like annoyed, and that happens with everything.
Correct.
But if you truly love it, then it comes naturally, and it's fun for you.
It is.
So if 20-year-old Lisa was sitting right in front of you today, what would you tell her?
I would tell 20-year-old Lisa to love yourself a little bit more. Allow yourself some patience and allow yourself some grace. I was very hard on myself in my 20s. Hard to the sense that I would have discussions with myself. No, Lisa, you could have done better. You could have done it this way. And looking back, I would have been kinder to myself, for myself. I would have just been more patient with myself.
That makes complete sense. Thank you so much for taking the time.
You're
we
welcome.
are all wrapped, but I really appreciate you sitting down with me and having this conversation. I truly think it's so important.
You're welcome. Yes, it is. It's super important for people to hear people's stories because it's how we alleviate biases in the world and in our space that we occupy.
Exactly. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.